by you. I just want to know what they're drinking.
That's a really good question.
That's the key.
It's probably not what I drink.
That would be a lot of bottles.
Yes.
One last question for you. We know that donors have sort of publicly threatened, and again, this is the stuff that's been in the Washington Times, in this conservative publication. Donors have threatened to stop giving money to the RNC. Is there evidence that that's actually happening, or is that just a threat to push Steele?
Well, I don't know about those large donors, although obviously the large donors that have come out and said they won't do it, they have stopped giving. But as, again, your friend of mine, Dave Weigel, has pointed out, the RNC is doing very badly in recent past, and that money is not going to them. The money that is really sort of moving right now is going to the Tea Parties. It's going to places like Jim DeMint's organization. The RNC is not able to sort of reap the profits of the sort of rabid anti-Obama fervor that's out there. And I think that's a real disappointment to them, and I think that a lot of the missteps that Michael Steele has made and that the Republicans have made have been attempts to try and get on that bandwagon, and they just haven't been able to do so in a way that really just sort of starts churning that money.
Marie Cox, Washington correspondent for GQ, thank you so much for joining us. It's nice to see you.
Thank you, Rachel.
Have you ever heard of a sovereign wealth fund? Sovereign as in sovereign country, wealth fund as in giant pile of money. A country with a ton of cash laying around might form a sovereign wealth fund just to use it as a savings account, essentially, or to invest around the world. It turns out that there are a lot of countries around the world that have a ton of spare money laying around, and some of their sovereign wealth funds have grown to be enormous, like hundreds of billions of dollars enormous. At least we think so. The handy thing about a sovereign wealth fund is that they're essentially totally unregulated. They don't have to disclose anything about themselves to anyone, so we don't really know how big they are. That said, it's believed that the biggest one in the world is the one in Abu Dhabi, in the United Arab Emirates. You can see its outsized headquarters here. The Abu Dhabi Sovereign Wealth Fund is thought to be somewhere between $300 and $800 billion. It's run by the younger brother of the president of the United Arab Emirates, or at least it was. The head of the world's largest sovereign wealth fund, the brother of the president of the United Arab Emirates, is missing. On Friday, apparently he was a passenger in a glider that crashed in Morocco. The pilot survived, but the head of the Abu Dhabi Investment Authority has not been found. The glider he was riding in apparently crashed into a man-made lake at the site of one of Morocco's royal palaces. Again, the pilot found, but the guy who heads the Sovereign Wealth Fund, not found. A search for him has been underway now for 3 days, including rescue teams from Dubai and from France and from Spain, all helping out. So far, neither the government of the United Arab Emirates, nor the Sovereign Wealth Fund, nor the missing man's family have said anything at all about what's happened. Very strange story. We will keep you posted if and when we can report anything further. Back home in the United States, there are 15 state attorneys general who have said that they will sue the federal government to stop health reform. But just because a state attorney general thinks that's a good idea doesn't mean the whole state is on board with that idea. Washington, Michigan, Colorado, and Pennsylvania, for example, are 4 states where the attorney general wants to sue, but the governors of those 4 states think it's a dumb idea, a waste of time and money. Governors Christine Gregoire of Washington, Jennifer Granholm of Michigan, Bill Ritter of Colorado, and Ed Rendell of Pennsylvania have all now written a joint letter to the federal Justice Department disavowing any connection to the lawsuits and pledging to help the federal government defeat them. Quote, on behalf of citizens of our states, we write to let you know that we oppose the actions of the state attorneys general. We believe their legal efforts will fail in court, unnecessarily delay the urgent need to get our citizens access to health care, and waste our state tax dollars. As you prepare and deliver your defense of this landmark legislation, you have our commitment to work with you at your request to assist in this effort. To be fair, it's not just the governors who think the anti-health reform lawsuits aren't going to be successful. It would take a minor legal miracle for them to be successful. And even in the event of that miracle, these lawsuits still wouldn't nullify health reform. Worst case scenario, they would force only minor non-substantive changes to the law. Still, though, I mean, states right now are so awash in spare money. Why not waste a bunch of taxpayer time and money on a pointless legal stunt with no practical consequence? Why not? I have an update for you on something I just said earlier in the show. I've just been informed that actually I was totally wrong. Turns out states are not totally awash in spare cash right now. In fact, late update is that turns out states are totally broke. Actually, totally, completely broke, like worse than ever. Coast to coast, states in bad shape. In a desperate effort to close its jaw-dropping budget shortfall, the great state of New Jersey, for example, is considering a brand new way to raise revenues. For more on that, we turn to our Garden State desperation correspondent, who, of course, is Kent Jones. Hi, Kent.
Hi, Rachel. Corporations spend millions to display their logo, but now the state of New Jersey is taking the whole idea of sponsorship to a new level.
The Garden State is faced with an $11 billion budget gap. Well, since big companies sponsor sports stadiums, why wouldn't they spend big bucks to sponsor other buildings? Like these. An idea has been floated to sell the naming rights for 12 rest stops on the New Jersey Turnpike and 8 on the Garden State Parkway. Now, what corporation wouldn't want their product associated with a place where people go to go? Department of Transportation Commissioner James Simpson loves the idea, saying, quote, the Nike stop might be worth $10 million. Just do it? Here? Really? Currently, some of New Jersey's rest stops are named for people, like Coach Vince Lombardi, Alexander Hamilton, or Walt Whitman. But why promote a bunch of has-beens who can't pay a dime when Jersey could chip away at the deficit with rest stop sponsorships like this? Or this? Or even this. If you can make it here, you'll make it anywhere.
Thank you, Kent. For the record, if our show ever did raise the cash to name a New Jersey rest stop, what I would want to do is I would want to get the Walt Whitman one. And then I would pay good money to just keep it named the Walt Whitman one. And then we'd probably have to rename ourselves the Walt Whitman Show or something. That might end up being weird. But still, I'd keep it Walt Whitman. I would. I have one last thing to show you. What you're looking at here is a metal relief sculpture of Saddam Hussein. Now, the New York Times describes this particular sculpture as perhaps the only surviving public image of Saddam Hussein in Baghdad. Now, in this heroic sculpture, what you're looking at here is the late mustachioed despot, depicted as if he is personally directing something. And what he's directing is the construction of the July 14th bridge. That's what the image is showing. Him directing the construction of the July 14th bridge, a suspension bridge in Baghdad that celebrates the start of Ba'athist rule in Iraq. The Ba'ath Party, of course, was Saddam Hussein's party. It is no longer in power in Baghdad. Now, as if to make that fact abundantly clear, we'll go back to that image. Somebody has now taken a hacksaw to this in Baghdad. The only surviving public image of Saddam Hussein in Baghdad has had Saddam Hussein cut out of it with a hacksaw, just leaving his arm. Saddam's ghostly disembodied arm, pointing to the old Republican palace and to the newly constructed giant American embassy. Also providing a very rich Photoshop opportunity for anyone who wants to see themselves, or say Conan O'Brien, or maybe Superman, or the Blue Meanie, or Elvis, or this one's really, really good. Oh yeah, that was good. Michael Jackson. Maybe even Sarah Palin, with me peeking out the side. All of these images submitted online by very talented viewers of this show, for which we thank you. That does it for us tonight. We will see you again tomorrow night. Until then, you can email us, Rachel@MSNBC.com. You can hang out with us and submit cool stuff like we just showed you at our new blog, which is maddowblog.msnbc.com. We're very proud of it. We test story ideas there. We break news. We get you involved in the show. It's very cool. maddowblog.msnbc.com. Podcast is at iTunes or at rachel.msnbc.com. Countdown with Keith Olbermann starts right now. Have a good night.